Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers podcast is brought to you by betonline.ag. The football season is over, but there is still plenty to wager on. Where your favorite quarterback's going to go in the offseason, who the Steelers quarterback's going to be in 2022. A lot of other sports you can bet on. Betonline.ag is just the place to do that.
And regardless of the sport, regardless on where or what time it is, make sure y'all go to BetOnline because it's always open 24/7. So go to betonline.ag.
I'm excited to get into basketball season. Got to go to the North Carolina Tar Heels game last night. It was a lot of fun. So, yeah, a lot of great action to bet on. So head over to the website, betonline.ag, on your desktop or mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV to get started. Bet online where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, two-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, I am so happy to see your face. I'm glad you're back in Florida. You made it back from Las Vegas. So good to see you this morning, my man. Recording on Tuesday. We had to bump back from Monday. You had a few travel issues, but I'm happy to see you this morning. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm glad to be back in Orlando, Florida. When they said gate number 815, your Orlando flight is ready in 30 minutes, that's some of the strongest and proudest words I heard in a long time. But, man, 18 hours in the airport, Mark, especially land on that flow, so glad I was with 26 other coaches and kids, man. They made it my worthwhile. So I'm glad to be back, though.
Ike, they could almost film the sequel to the great Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal 2, starring Ike Taylor.
Right.
All right, Ike, we got a lot to discuss on today's show. Changes to the NFL Combine, which have gone back and forth. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, of all the Steelers free agent players, which one they should keep. But we are going to start the Steelers hiring Brian Flores as a senior defensive assistant and linebackers coach. And Ike, my gut impression was the Steelers are getting a great coach, someone who should be a head coach in this league and is very overqualified for this position. Credit the Steelers for giving Flores a job and credit Flores for humbling himself and accepting this job. He's not a head coach this time around, but if not for the lawsuit filed against the NFL, like, it is of my opinion that he would be employed right now as the head coach of the Houston Texans instead of Lovie Smith. So Steelers are getting an overqualified candidate, someone who's a defensive guru. And one last point I'm going to make, Ike, the pairing with Terrell Austin, a DB's guy, and Brian Flores, someone who's a master and a guru of the front seven, you pair them together, and I could not be more excited for the Steelers defense in the 2022 season.
I mean, they gave him a lifeline. One. That's what they did with Coach Brian Flores. They gave him a second chance because it was looking kind of slim from the outside in, right? Well, hell, man, you got a head coach that's going to be a defensive specialist sitting in the organization, sitting in your room. You got a former head coach who was a defensive guru in Miami. You got a former head coach when he was in Miami, man, he was making some decisions as far as like trading and getting rid of players, but wind up getting a lot of first-round draft picks. So obviously he knows what he's doing. In Pittsburgh, you got a former head coach who understands what it is to run an organization. He just so happened to be your assistant, defensive specialist coach. Pittsburgh came out with a win on this one because if you look at Pittsburgh, the past couple of years, even though they led the league in sacks, they really haven't done nothing in the run game. They still haven't been top 5 in a long time. Now you get one of the head guys, including Coach Tomlin, on your defensive staff, who was once a former head coach, in my opinion, was bringing Miami to the top. You know, they were taking baby steps, but they was heading in the right direction. Mm-hmm. You got him as a defensive specialist. That ain't nothing but a win-win situation. You know what I'm saying? So And shout out to Coach Brian Flores. Like you said, too, Martin, you pointed out something good. Being humble enough to take this job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because ain't no telling. He probably could have went to college. If the NFL didn't work out for him, somebody would have gave him a small college head coaching job, a FAU or something like that. You just never know. But the fact that he humbled himself and says, you know what, I know if I come out and speak, it's a strong possibility I'm not going to be in the NFL anymore. But Pittsburgh threw him a lifeline. And on both sides, I think that's a win-win.
And let me piggyback off this too, because there might be some listeners and viewers that say Brian Flores, 3 years in Miami, 24-25 overall record. Let me point this out. First back-to-back winning seasons for the Dolphins since 2003, a franchise that has not won a playoff game since December 30th, 2000. So the lawsuit in which he was alleging that he was getting paid to purposely tank and lose game, or at least was being offered to do so. You're talking about a Miami franchise that hasn't had a lot of success in the postseason in the last 20 years. And he was starting to turn the tide there to do that. I still think it's bogus that he even lost his job in the first place. And that might be an entirely different issue. But from the Pittsburgh standpoint, they get a coach who's still young at the age of 40. And again, the pairing with Terrell Austin, I love, because you mentioned this when the Steelers decided to hire Austin as their DC. You said, I like that he's a back-end guy. I like that he's a secondary guy. What Flores specializes is in righting the ship in the front seven. And if there's one player who stands to benefit most, Devin Bush, the former first-round draft pick, he's going to get right as a result of that. He's probably the biggest beneficiary with this Flores hire, because he's getting a great coach who's going to show him what he needs to do to become a great linebacker in this league. If there's anyone who stands to benefit, I am expecting a big, big redemption season from Devin Bush coming off that ACL injury. He was slowly working his way back in 2021, but he's got to be over the moon with this hire, because Flores is going to help him get his career back on track.
Yeah, and that starts with the front four. So we want to see what the Pittsburgh defense wants to do, especially in this offseason, in this draft, on how they draft, or free agency, and see what they get. Do they want to go to a 4-3, or do they want to stick to the 3-4? I know they've been running something like a hybrid in general, but you got to have a true kind of defense. So time will tell. So with the Brian Flores, Coach Tomlin and his defensive staff, we shall see. You know, so for me, my indicator would be the draft, who they get and who they draft, and the indicator in the free agency, who they get for the free agents. So that's how I look at it. That's going to tell me everything what Coach T is thinking, especially on the defensive side. I already know for sure they're going for an inside linebacker. So I think they're going to go for an inside linebacker high to go with a Devin Bush. I think they like Alex Highsmith a lot. He's turned the corner along with TJ Watt. So, and they got to get him a D tackle. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting, Mark, to see what they do for the draft and the free agency. That's going to let me know everything I need to know on how Coach Tomlin and his defensive staff is thinking.
This might be our second or third consecutive show where you've hinted that the Steelers might shift from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3. So I'm just making a note for that for the listeners and the viewers to keep an eye out for that, because Psychic Ike Taylor is usually on the money. I'm going to go back to Flores here for just a second, too. When he filed the lawsuit, remember, Ike, there were still head coaching vacancies, obviously from the Dolphins, who he got fired from, but from the Saints, Jags, Vikings, and Texans at the time he filed the lawsuit, and that came out publicly. But, I mean, he has a tremendous track record, too, even with not even including the 3 years in Miami as a head coach, 4 years as a Patriot scout, 15 seasons as a Patriots assistant head coach, 4 Super Bowl victories, 3 seasons, including 2 winning seasons in Miami, too. So they started out 1-7 in the 2021 season, and then they finished the 2021 season with a 9-8 record, right on the cusp of the playoffs, Ike. And again, this is no knock on Lovie Smith, but I am of the belief that he would be the head coach right now of the Houston Texans, if not for the class action lawsuit that he filed against the NFL.
No, 100%. I mean, you gave him a quarterback that he didn't want. I mean, it's already been the understanding, like he wanted Justin Herbert, and the front office and the owner wanted Tua. So you would have gave the man Justin Herbert, they would have been in the playoffs 2 years ago, to be honest with you. And that's no knock on Tua. It's just Tua's not Justin Herbert, point blank, period. You already see what Justin Herbert is doing. in his lad years. So he probably got like 15 more years left to play in the NFL if he really wants to. So, yeah, man, you kind of shortcut the man throughout this whole – you say you trust me as a head coach in my decision-making, but you want to override me when it's time to make the tough decisions. That's exactly what went on for the Miami Dolphins and Coach Brian Flores. So, I mean, it's a crazy, sensitive subject for Coach Brian, but I'm so glad Pittsburgh gave him a second opportunity. But I'm even more glad that Pittsburgh have him on staff to help that defense out, Mark.
I don't want to speak for you, but I'm also of the belief that one day he'll be a head coach in the league again. He's only 40 years old, so I'd fully expect him to get another opportunity at some point down the line. I see no reason why not. And so really for me, it's like, how long can Pittsburgh hang on to him? Because again, like I said off the top, I think he's very overqualified for this role.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win-win situation for both of them. I don't know if he was ever going to get hired again in the NFL, and Pittsburgh definitely needed some help on that defensive staff.
Absolutely. Ike, one last thing, too, before we go to the next topic. The Steelers play the Dolphins in the 2022 season. Now, we don't know the exact date yet, but Brian Flores will have the opportunity to coach against his team, get some sweet revenge. We find out the NFL schedule release on May 12th, so we'll have our reaction show and go win-loss of all the Steelers' regular season games when that comes out. Also want to tease ahead, too. You mentioned how you think that the Steelers could draft an inside linebacker, a defensive tackle. We started to chart out in the coming weeks here on the Bleav in Steelers podcast, like we did for the 2021 draft. For the 2022 draft, we will have top 5 at each position group as well. So that is in the coming weeks here on the Bleav in Steelers podcast, Ike.
Man, I can't wait. Y'all know what we're doing, man. Once it come down to this draft, y'all better tune in with Mark and I, because we definitely be on point with a lot of stuff we be saying. So make sure y'all keep tuning in to the Bleav in Steelers podcast.
Ike, we will take a quick break to tell our listeners and viewers about NordVPN. And listen, you need to have peace of mind when it comes to the security on all your devices, your phones, your mobile devices, your tablets, your desktop computer. NordVPN is the world's best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, more servers, and next-gen encryption to make sure that everything you do online stays safe.
Man, if y'all trying to hack us, we ain't slacking, because we stick with NordVPN.com.
The viewers of the Bleav in Steelers podcast can see the link on your screen right now. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/Bleav or use the code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month for free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Ike, free agency is right around the corner, and remember, it comes before the NFL draft. Overthecap.com shows the Steelers have about $28.7 million in salary cap space, so I wanted to play a game today of all the Steelers due to become unrestricted free agents this offseason, and I will read you the list.
Yes.
Which one you would like to see the Steelers keep? I think I know the answer right before the top, but I will read you the list of players who are due to become unrestricted free agents from Pittsburgh. So you've got Juju Smith-Schuster, Joe Hayden, Eric Ebron, Akello Witherspoon, Trey Turner, Terrell Edmonds, Miles Killebrew, James Washington, Joshua Dobbs, Ray McLeod, Arthur Millette, and Chooks Okorafor. Might be a player not on that list, Ike, but of those players, who do you think is most vital that the Steelers keep for the 2022 season?
You got to keep Witherspoon.
Yes, let's go. That was my choice. Okay, I love it. I thought you were going to go James Washington, but Witherspoon, 26 years old, Ike, balled out for the Steelers every opportunity he had. Please make the case for Akello Witherspoon. I love it.
So you get a young, rangy, tall corner you've been looking for. You get a corner who's not even close to being in his prime. A lot of game time, experience. That's what you've been looking for. So you're going to let Joe Hayden go, and you're going to get Witherspoon. And it's one thing you need in the NFL, and that's depth at the cornerback position. So he adds another dimension to your cornerback situation. You're going to try in the offseason and get not even in free agency, but in a draft, you're going to try and get another corner. So say, well, you get rid of Witherspoon, now you just kind of put yourself in the hole when it comes down to that back end. And that's something you're not going to want to do, especially if you're going to get rid of Joe Hayden, which I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will get rid of Joe Hayden. He's been a heck of a player for his short stint being for the Steelers, man. I wish I could have played with him. But at the same time, man, when I just saw, Rangy, every week, every game, he was just getting more confident. And that's a Coach Tomlin product. That's the kind of guys Coach Tomlin likes. He likes them cerebral kind of guys who IQ is very high on the football field. And obviously that's what, Witherspoon is. Plus he just so happened to be rangy and can run and don't mind tackling. So you just don't get that mix. Either you can run and cover but don't like tackling, or you can tackle and you can't cover. But with Witherspoon, man, he can do both, and that's rare as a cornerback. So I think that's a hidden gem. And my second player was going to be James Washington. I think yours was going to be the same as well. But, yeah, I'm going to go one. If it's anybody the Pittsburgh Steelers need to keep, they need to keep Witherspoon.
I think it would be great value, Ike. Again, 26 years old, had the lowest quarterback rating of any Steelers defender in the 2021 season, 13.5. The next lowest, Minkah Fitzpatrick, 55.7. So Witherspoon, low-key, was an excellent cover corner in the 2021 season, Ike.
Yeah, he's not talked about, but believe me, in that organization, they talking about him a lot, especially right now because, when it comes down to grading out, he graded one of the highest grades too as well with the I think the minimum snaps. I forgot what the minimum snaps was. But, yeah, ain't nobody talking about him, but I guarantee you the city of Pittsburgh and the organization, they definitely talking about him. And he's going to be the number one or number two priority in this offseason to keep.
Witherspoon, 26, Joe Hayden, 32, and we know they call him Money Joe for a reason, Ike, and I love Joe Hayden, don't get me wrong, but he's trying to get the bag one more time, and it's I just don't know if that's a great value for Pittsburgh.
Joe,
knock on him. Go ahead, Ike.
I told Joe, let me hold something, man. Joe has the most money out of any cornerback in NFL history. I Googled that. I Googled all his contracts. Joe just got money on top of money, top of money, top of money, top of. Joe's got a lot of money, man. He got a lot of money, man. We're talking about $100 million guy for real.
Yeah, Ike, it's live math here on the air. More than $121 million earned. Now, look, I'm not going to be tax guy, but Spotrac.com showing more than $121 million earned for Joe Hayden throughout his career, where he's been a Pro Bowl corner at his elite. He's among the best, but he's going to try to get that bag one more time. I'm just not sure financially if it makes sense for Pittsburgh to be able to pay for his services. James Washington, he's the player I thought you would answer with, Ike, just because of his toughness as a receiver. I do think James Washington would be a better value than Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I know how beloved Juju is among Steelers fans, and it's not just the on-field play, his connection with the community, his connection with his social media presence as well, which is equally as important, I would say, for his lifestyle as it is being a football player. And that's no knock. I think he's a very good receiver, very willing blocker, a go-to target for Big Ben these last several years. But I'm not sure that Pittsburgh's going to be able to afford him. And I want to give Juju Smith-Schuster credit for this as well, Ike. Coming back at the end of the season to rehab back from that shoulder injury and to play in the playoffs, that shows you a lot. And it's not just the talk, and it's not just, he's dancing on the field and doing his TikTok videos or his social media presence, but to work his way back, to suit up one more time, to play for the black and gold, and to suit up with Big Ben one more time too. Like, I thought it really said a lot to me. It spoke volumes to me. I'm just not sure if you want to pay him $8+ million a year if he's worth that value for what Pittsburgh's needs are.
Yeah, Juju is a Steeler. It's a few people. It's a few people on that roster that I don't think they're Steelers. When it comes down to being hard-nosed, being unselfish, even his on or off the field antics. I mean, the man been dancing since he was at USC. So
yeah, since high school, like even before that in high school.
Yeah, people be talking about Juju like Juju been doing this. And obviously, it's smart of him to do it because that's how he gets paid in the offseason. You know, he make a lot of money with these TikTok views. I think he have over 1 million YouTube subscribers. So Juju know what he's doing. He's his own marketing firm. And you can't knock that. But I'm not going to take away what he's done on the field. I'm not going to take away if he would have played with us in the early 2000s, he could have played because the man brings some kind of physicality. If you watch that Vontae Burfict situation where Burfict got AB, and guess who got him back?
Yep.
It was Juju. And that ain't nothing but a want to. But Juju issue is, one, staying healthy. Two, he has to understand he's a good low range a number 3 receiver. That's exactly what Juju is. So he needs the 2 guys on the outside of him to produce, and he'll be a solid number 3. Just like how Tyler Boyd is with Cincinnati. You know, you got Jamar Chase, then after Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins, and guess who's going to eat and work in that slot? It's going to be Tyler Boyd. That's exactly what Juju is, you know. So you bring James Washington back if you can. You bring Juju back, see if you're going to get him for the dirt. And you already know what you got over there with Chase Claypool. So there go your 3 right there if you want to do it.
Ike, I didn't know that your yellow knitted cap was your GM cap. I love your analysis about the Juju Smith-Schuster situation.
Oh, man, I appreciate y'all. I told you I'm trying to be a GM, Mark.
No, I think that is spot on in terms of where he is. We always talked about his best days where he was the Robin to AB's Batman, and that's when he put up his highest level of production early in his career. Still a very young player. I'm interested to see if he goes to Dallas, if maybe Kansas City's a fit, if he would come back to Pittsburgh on what would be a sweetheart deal. I don't think Pittsburgh would be able to offer him the most. He came back to Pittsburgh. Remember, the Baltimore Ravens offered him more money in this past offseason, but he wanted to run it back with Big Ben one more time.
That would be a perfect fit for Juju. Because there's been speculation on they're either going to ask DeMarcus Lawrence, which I said this before, or Amari Cooper for a pay cut or cut them. And if they let Amari Cooper go, I don't think they will because of a draft pick they might lose. Time will tell. But it would be a perfect fit. You know, then you got Gallup over there. He's hurt as well, so we don't know his timetable on how healthy he would be as well. But Juju will fit perfect because it's another team with a lot of exposure. And what Juju likes, he likes a lot of exposure. So Pittsburgh and that organization have a lot of exposure and a lot of following. The Dallas Cowboys are pretty damn good, and they have a slot for Juju. And guess what? They also have a lot of followers and a lot of exposure. So if you're Juju, I'm just thinking like Juju because Juju also worried about his followers and his exposure as well when it comes down to the social media. Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys.
The 2 franchises that like hate each other, like just given their history of success going back, I mean, decades ago, generations ago, Ike. So, oh man. Okay, we'll see how all this shakes out. Free agency still about a month away or so. Ike, we're going to move on. Proposed changes to the NFL Combine, which have been so wishy-washy because now it appears that there isn't going to be any bubble, but the NFL's messaging has been so inconsistent about all of this. It's during the 2021 season. Oh, COVID is dangerous. The playoffs, you didn't hear anything about testing or anything. And now with the Combine, they're saying, well, we're going to require the players to bubble, in which case there were about 150 players represented by like a dozen or so agents saying, well, if this is the case, we're going to boycott the Combine, which is, you know, a huge TV and media event now too. But the thing I don't understand about any of this is if the bubble is what you wanted to do, why wasn't it announced sooner? Because the NFL Combine, Ike, is a little bit more than a week away. It starts on March 1st. So last minute to say, well, you can only bring one person with you, whether it's a trainer, whether it's a dietitian, whether it's your personal chef, and this person has to be vaccinated. To suggest this so last minute when so much is at stake for these young men going to the Combine and to propose these changes so late in the game, I credit for all of them standing up because it'd be one thing if you were to say this, say, a month ago, but to suggest these changes with less than 2 weeks before to the start of the Combine is just absurd.
Yeah, the NFL dropped the ball on this one. They didn't do anything professional on this end. Give me a heads up, give me a month heads up, like you said, Mark, or even a month and a half. And the sad thing about it is y'all been know y'all was going to say this to the media. So why you just didn't come out and say it a while ago? Unless this is just something new. And if this is just something new, well, damn, man, that's an issue, But at the same time, I kind of see what the NFL is saying. The guys that you're asking, the NFL players who are not rookies, you already have a protocol. Every team has a protocol. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to the vaccination, on who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. And for the most part, everybody's around the same person in the NFL, So you get tested, you're around the same person, you go home, you stay around the same person. When these new guys coming in, we don't know who they're around. That's how the NFL is looking at it. They're working out with their trainers, they're hanging out with their friends. So ain't no telling what's going on. So I don't want the reason why they want to do the bubble, I don't want the whole combine to be, a non-vaccinated kind of COVID kind of combine. So I do see what they're saying. They just dropped the ball on sharing or not sharing this earlier. But as far as protection and keeping everybody healthy, you got to understand they point of view, man, that these are not already NFL guys, so they know the protocols and what to do, and they're not in season. These are guys that damn near coming, I'm not going to say off the street, but these are young kids who has been around a lot of other people, whether it's training, family members, and friends. So we just don't want to have a whole combine for the COVID.
I get that. I go back to what I said earlier too, and you hit the nail on the head here too, is if this is what you wanted to do, and I understand it from the NFL standpoint, why wasn't it announced sooner? Correct. You can't do this, say, 2 weeks before. And I want to point to your own experience at your pro day, Ike, to underscore the importance of what, a fast 40-yard dash can do, what a fast 3-cone drill can do, what a high bench press could do, what you can do in individual interviews with these teams and how life-changing that can be. And I know that was the case when you had your pro day at Louisiana Lafayette, on how that completely changed your life for the 40 time that you ran at your pro day, Ike. So that's just the point I want to make in terms of the importance of the combine, of what that can do for a player's career and for a player's life.
Yeah, if the NFL wanted to do something, they should have did it a month ago. They should have had the guys at the combine 2 weeks prior. They should have gave them one last week to train. They should have given them a week to cool down. In between them 2 weeks, which would have made it 3 with the combine, they would have been in a bubble, and they already would have been or would have had a protocol, and everybody probably would have got vaccinated. That's what the NFL should have done, in my mind. Going on and give these guys 3 weeks in Indy, and here's the reason why. We're trying to keep everybody safe. Of course, we got a lot of money and people sponsoring us out the woohoo when it comes down to this combine, because basically it's like another version of the Super Bowl. So say, it's a big event. Everybody loves the combine. So yeah, the NFL did drop the ball on this one. But my personal opinion, since we're talking about it, I would have had them guys in Indy for 3 weeks. Give it one more week of training, another week of cool down and testing. And you want your product healthy. So you give them 3 weeks, man, you will have a healthy product. Everybody will be COVID free. So say.
Ike, if you could only bring one person like the NFL had suggested, would you bring Tom Shaw, your trainer? Who are you bringing with you to Indy if you were a player, in 2022? Put your shoes there. Who you bring into Indianapolis with you as a DB?
I'm bringing my mama. Yeah, I'm bringing mom.
Explain why.
Just a soothing, calming, relaxed atmosphere. Everything is moms cater, especially when they know the life is on the line. It's just like the combine, from a mom perspective, it's like their kids sitting in the hospital. So they gonna always ask you, baby, what you need or what you want or can I help you? What do you need me to do? So that's what I would have did, because I look at the combine from a mother's perspective. So say, like, damn, my baby about to go into the hospital. I don't want my baby stressing out. I need to make sure my baby is at the top of their game. So I need to do everything I need to do to help my baby out. That's how I look at it. So that's why I said my mom.
That answer surprised me, Ike. it makes sense, but it just surprised me. Again, almost 150 draft prospects threatened to boycott, and so they've lessened the restrictions on the so-called bubble, but they encourage players to remain within the confines of the secure areas during their free time, just to mitigate risk as best they can. So I'm excited to watch the combine. I always call them the underwear Olympics. I always like watching though, and it gives us a little bit of taste of football this period of the offseason where we don't have NFL action.
Yeah, I can't wait till next week we're gonna start getting into our, prospects. We're gonna smoke that. That help us out throughout the course of the year too as well.
Ike, you're the absolute best. Always fun doing the show with you. Want to thank the Bleav Podcast Network and our producers over at Brinks TV, led by John Brinkus, Courtney Vargas, Herbert Diaz, Lucy Oden, new shout out, new producer, has been helping us out behind the scenes, and the crew over at Brinks. I also want to thank today's sponsors of the Bleav in Steelers podcast, BetOnline, NordVPN, and Athletic Greens. And to the listeners and the viewers of the Bleav in Steelers podcast, keep rocking with us because it is the off season, but we've got a lot of great content ahead of the combine, ahead of free agency, and ahead of the 2022 NFL draft.
Man, make sure y'all subscribe and give us that 5-piece, them 5 stars right there. But I want to thank everybody for just tuning in and listening and viewing into our Bleav in Steelers podcast. Got to give a huge shout out to all the production behind the scenes. I appreciate y'all with Brinks TV, BetOnline, NordVPN, and Athletic Greens as well for sponsoring us. I appreciate that. Mark, I appreciate you and everything else. Appreciate Bleav in Steelers podcast, just in general, for giving Mark and I opportunity. But yeah, man, I'm so grateful. I'm so glad to be back in Orlando for real.
For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for listening and watching the Bleav in Steelers podcast. We will see you next time. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
Peace.